Very good morning and welcome to the inaugural meeting of the Devon and Torbay Combined County Authority. And if you're joining us on the live stream, a very good morning and welcome to you. The CCA is, and forgive me, I will refer to the Combined County Authority onwards as the CCA. I do try to get away from acronyms, but you understand why, certainly in this room, why we use them. So the CCA is pleased to hold its inaugural meeting here in Tavistock, hosted by West Devon Borough Council. Thank you. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank them for hosting this meeting and, of course, thank Mandy, the team, and all the officers. For us, James and I, it is important that the CCA represents all of Devon and Torbay. And after today's meeting, we will observe firsthand some of the ongoing work in West Devon, part funded by Combined Authority funding. It was an important part for us to move across Devon, and this will be the first of our meetings, and each time we intend to be in a different location, seeing how we can help with the impact across Devon. Devolution is already having a positive impact across the community, and we are excited about those future opportunities for businesses and communities. So at that point, I will pause on the welcome, but I will move across to Councillor Mandy Hewings, who is the leader of West Devon Borough Council, and invite Mandy to say a few words. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. As the chair-elect, I think is the technical term, of Dave, to welcome you all here to West Devon. I know the leader of Exeter has toured Tavistock. He's a bit worried that you can't meet more than 4 at a time, because Wednesday is still a very traditional day in Tavistock and it's always very quiet. It's only not in that many recent years that shops open all day. Some were still closing half day. So we are a very rural country town that still has many of those ethos of what some of us have grown up with living. Welcome to West Devon. As you've seen, we have a lovely car park that's free. We have this fabulous chamber. James will remember it opening in here. Somebody asked me today, and I said, it's about 15 years, isn't it, James? Maybe a bit longer. When James was leader here in this room. We're delighted to host this first inaugural meeting of the authority. It is exciting times. I think as districts, it's been exciting, but also scary times. I don't think most of us have had much of a life in this room since the 16th of December. It has just been focused on plans, who's doing what, who's not telling who what, and all the rest of it. It has been slightly difficult. I personally have to say that I'm really hoping that after Friday that I don't hear the word LGR or Devo for a couple of weeks at least. It's like it needs to just go to bed for a little while. But I know that we will all be busy evidencing our plans, creating the business side, etc. West Devon, as you know, has 2 market towns. We have Oakhampton and Tavistock, but we also have some smaller, very rural towns of Chagford, North Taunton, Hatherley, Beer, Alston. I think that's it for those ones. And we are a small community. There are definitely more sheep than humans. And we all rub along quite well. The only problem we have, which has become very apparent during LGR discussions, is we have a great big blob of granite. that has caused quite a few problems, because do you split Tavistock, split Oakhampton, because of the long range, as you've probably all come across Blackdown and that area, and as you've driven through from Sawton, if you've come down that way through to Tavistock, you've got the moors, the whole side of you. So it is a challenge, but one that we meet well, and we are progressing. We're learning to adapt to new ways of working. We've always been very into shared partnership working, which I think, James, you were a part of almost starting the TA team, weren't you? So we went through a very, very painful process back in the teens of the 2000s. But it has worked very well for us to work with South Hams and to have one workforce that works for both authorities. So that has worked very successfully. It has been modelled in other places in the country that have come and had a look. So progression, as in some people will have to learn under Devo and LGR to learn to work together. We're already doing it, so we know how it works, which is quite interesting. So with no further ado, I would like to let Dave start the meeting proper like.
Thank you very much indeed, Mandy. And so let's start the meeting and we move to housekeeping. So there are no fire alarms planned. If the fire alarm sounds, you will need to vacate the building. Please follow West Devon colleagues who will guide us from the chamber to the meeting point, which is the car park furthest away from this building. Please note that the meeting is being live streamed, so remember to speak into the microphone and of course switch it off after you've used it. And finally, if I could ensure that all mobile phones and electronic devices are turned to silent. We open the agenda proper with apologies. Anne-Marie Bond, please.
We have apologies from Alison Hernandez. Alison is non-constituent member of the Devon and Cornwall and Isles of Scilly Police and Crime Commissioner, but Francis Hughes is here in attendance. Councillor Swithin Long is slightly delayed, but hopefully will be joining us shortly, Chair. And then we do have some apologies from our substitute members. So Councillor Katia Madison, Councillor Bye, Councillor Samuel and Councillor Hughes.
Thank you very much indeed. Move on to declarations of interests. And before we move into this, I invite the monitoring officer to advise.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To remind members that they should declare any interest they may have in an item to be considered prior to the discussion taking place on that item. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any declarations at this point? Thank you.
Chairman, yes, I have a declaration of interest. In item 4, a close family member is an employee of Devon Assurance Partnership.
Thank you very much, and that is noted. Okay, we move on to item 1, which is the appointment of members and the election of chair and vice chair. Sean, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The purpose of this report is to formalise the appointment of members to the Combined County Authority and to elect the chair and vice chair as required by the regulations that establish the authority. Members will be aware that the Combined County Authority was formally established on the 5th of February, and the regulations detail the requirements for appointing the membership and the mechanisms for electing the chair and vice chair as the first item at our inaugural meeting. Membership of the authority includes 6 constituent members, 3 each from Devon County Council and Torbay Council, 4 non-constituent members, including representatives nominated by the Devon District Forum and the Police and Crime Commissioner for Devon, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, and 2 associate members from the Business Advisory Group and the Skills and Employment Advisory Group, respectively. The report sets out the substitute arrangements in detail. The regulations state that the chair and vice chair must be drawn from the constituent members and cannot both be from the same council. The Shadow Board previously resolved to elect yourself, Councillor Thomas, and Councillor McInnes as chair and vice chair on the 31st of January 2025. The report also covers the circumstances in which membership of the CCA would cease under certain conditions, such as when a member ceases to be part of a constituent council that appointed them, or if they resign or are terminated by their appointing council. So in summary, the report sets out the membership of the CCA, formalises the appointment of chair and vice chair, and the recommendations are that the CCA members outlined in paragraph 3.5 of the report are appointed, that yourself, Councillor Thomas, is elected chair until the AGM in May 2027, and Councillor McInnes as vice chair until the same date. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. I invite Councillor Lewis to put his proposal to the board.
Thank you very much, Chairman-elect. I would like to propose Councillor David Thomas as chairman and Councillor James McGuinness as vice chairman. And at this stage, I'd like to thank the two of them, and of course the teams from Devon and from Torbay for all the hard work that they've done over the past 18 months. I'm sure that you both, David and James, never thought you would get to this stage, but we are here, and it's great to get out of Torbay to West Devon. So I propose Councillor Thomas, Councillor McGuinness as chairman and vice chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I understand that this will be seconded by Councillor Davis.
I'm very happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you. Is there any debate? Councillor Bialik.
Will the monitoring officer let us know on what we can vote and what we can't vote on? It just helps the memory so we know. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, just to confirm that the chairperson has within their script to be able to identify specifically which ones. So you'll be guided by each item as to where the constituent and non-constituent members can vote on.
That's probably where we're moving to now, the vote. And in this one, it's the majority of constituent, that's going to be a word for me today, isn't it now? It whenever was until tonight, or even this morning, while at sea morning meetings, constituent council members of the CCA, all their substitutes present and voting at the meeting to be in favour. So there are expecting 6 votes in total on this item. So all those in favour, please indicate. Okay, thank you very much indeed. That one is unanimous. We move on to...
Sorry, Mr. Chair, can I just confirm that the vote wasn't unanimous? Councillor Long.
Okay, in which case, all those... Sorry, my apologies. Do you need a number? All those for? Thank you. Those against?
5 for, 1 against.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. That is carried. Appreciated. And actually, before we move on, I just wanted to... I think it would be nice for... James and I have worked our way through this together, and I think it would be nice for James to say a few words.
Thank you, David. I just wanted to say a few words, and I don't think we can be at this stage without mentioning John Hart, who was so persistent when he was leader of the County Council, working with Torbay and at the time Plymouth, to talk to the previous government about having a combined authority. And there are many times I know, because I was deputy leader at that time, you know, John could have walked away and said this is just too hard, too difficult to actually get it over the line. But the persistence of John Hart and Torbay we were very disappointed when Plymouth decided to walk away at the last minute. But I think it's a very important point. We now have a new government who is very committed to combined authorities and mayoral strategic authorities, etc. And actually having an upper tier authority like this that can actually deal with strategic issues such as in our case at the moment of strategic highway matters, adult training and learning, and housing, of course, is very important. I think it's a really important moment. It will evolve, I'm sure, over time, but also just for me personally to be in this chamber, when I was a member of West Devon Borough Council for 16 years and leader for 5, I never thought when I was here that would be it, talking about a strategic authority when I left, and it's really great to be here today to be doing this. So for me, it's quite an emotional day.
Thanking you. Move on to the governance of the Devon and Torbay Combined County Authority. Again, Sean and Steve to talk us through the report.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So the main purpose of this report is to seek agreement on several of the procedural and governance matters that are required at the first meeting of the CCA and to ratify decisions that have previously been taken at the Shadow Board in January. So again, as background, the establishment of the CCA followed the signing of the statutory instrument, and significant work has been undertaken to prepare for and design the governance arrangements that will now follow. The Constitution has been refined following further feedback from members and sets out the roles, responsibilities, procedure rules, membership and voting arrangements of the CCA. And the assurance framework has been updated to reflect the establishment of the CCA and includes the requirement to appoint an independent person as chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I'm pleased to inform members that MHCLG, so the ministry responsible, has approved the assurance framework that was submitted to them. Membership of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee and the Audit and Governance Committee reflects the political balance of the constituent councils and again includes representatives from districts. And it's noting there's a vacancy in the Audit and Governance paper. Councillor Mike Fox from Torbay Council has been appointed to that vacancy on the Audit and Governance Committee. There's a requirement to appoint independent members to both committees. As I've mentioned, the chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee and the report sets out the process for convening an independent remuneration panel and the process to advertise that vacancy. The vacancy for the Audit and Governance independent person has already been advertised by the County Council. The Shadow Board previously resolved to grant voting rights to non-constituent members for non-reserved matters, and we're asking members to formalise that decision today. And also to approve the appointments of the CCA statutory officers, Anne-Marie Bond as the Head of Paid Service, Amanda Barlow as Monitoring Officer, and Matthew Thorpe as Chief Finance Officer and Section 73 Officer. And these are appointments that require the consent of the lead members. Finally, two other points. The proposed calendar of meetings for the Board, its regulatory committees and advisory groups for the 25-26 municipal year is included in the report, as is the requirement to approve the local protocol on indemnity and insurance for elected members and officers. So, except to say that no significant financial or legal concerns other than we'll be in compliance with our legal obligations arise from the report and the recommendations are set out for your consideration. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor McInnes.
Very happy to propose.
Thank you very much. I'm also delighted to second this from the Chair. I remember when we were, for anybody who's spent any time working on their own authority's constitution, you'll know that how interesting that is. And being able to be involved in setting up a constitution from scratch is many more times the factor interesting, trying to evaluate the various bits and pieces that things may move forward and how they may not. Thankfully, we had some sterling support in the form of Maria and Amanda to kind of guide us. However, there is a lasting memory that I have when we went through the, at the time when we discussed it, it's now in the Constitution as a table of votes. Before it became a table of votes, it was a 4-page written legal monologue, which was incredibly complicated. I remember with James, we were going through this, and I said, "This just doesn't work." I said, "It works, but I just can't understand it." I said, and you know, if this comes to fruition, or when it does, you and I have then got to explain to the rest of the members when they can vote and when they can't. So anyway, we came across that problem, and we got there with the table, but don't underestimate the amount of work that has been put into the governance to try to get things right. So I am absolutely delighted to second this. Before I move to the vote, I will explain who can vote, but I'm going to open into debate at this point. Councillor Bialik.
Thank you, Chair. I've been approached, and first of all, constitutional. I understand the work that's gone into it. And like all good constitutions, a bit like the British Constitution as such, it evolves. It's not necessarily written down in one place. It evolves. And I've been approached, and I believe the monitoring officer, as in the director, has been approached in relation to members of the public asking questions at the meetings. If you could just explain that on why it's not at this time, it may be of benefit of all. That's the one point. And the other point is, and I know I went on about it at the shadow meeting, I'm assuming on page 96 where it talks about the disclosure of pecuniary interests. Once it's been adopted, we will be asked by the monitoring officer to fill in the requisite forms to be put on the website. So everybody is quite clear as to our pecuniary interests in any of these things. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll pick that up pick it up directly now with the monitoring officer regarding that members of the public piece, please.
So if I may, Chair, just in respect of the declarations of interest and the interest register, that is something that will come out here after this meeting to ensure that all members are compliant, being constituent, non-constituent and associate members. In respect of the questions, I'm going to ask if it's okay, Chair, for the Director of Operations to answer that, because we've responded to that question. And I think probably Mr. Anstey is best placed to answer that.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Anstey.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barrick, you are correct. So officers have been corresponding with the member of the public you have referred to, and the response has been to indicate that from a transparency perspective, the meeting clearly has been live streamed today. Members of the public are entitled to attend and observe. That the DT CCA board is made up of members that are drawn from constituent and non-constituent councils and the other nominating bodies, and that those bodies have established public participation arrangements in place, and currently they're the appropriate mechanisms to question elected members and all of their duties, including those in relation to their roles as members of the CCA and its business. I've also advised that the CCA will be making separate arrangements for members of the public to be informed of its work, and this will include the opportunity for debate, questions and dialogue, and details of those arrangements will be forthcoming as the work programme is further developed, and I've offered to respond to any further questions that he or any other members of the public may have.
Thank you. Councillor Long.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and apologies for being late. My sat-nav decided to misbehave as I entered Tavistock for some reason. Two brief things. One on the Constitution. There have been a number of issues in various councils in Devon regarding the code of conduct issues. And I'm just slightly concerned that we may have had a sort of cut and paste regarding that, and whether anything has been taken into account of the issues and the code of conduct bettered as a result of those issues that have taken place across Devon. And the other one was regarding Torbay Council, and we're often told as members that officer capacity is at full stretch, and so I'm just slightly concerned about officer capacity being taken away to serve this authority as well. Thank you.
Okay, so let's start with the first part of the Code of Conduct, please.
So, Councillor Long, I can confirm in respect of the Code of Conduct, the CCA has adopted the model code from government. So that's the one that probably is national. So for Torbay specifically, we've slightly modified and adopted it to work better for us as an authority, but certainly, and I'm sure that Devon have done the same, but it's the model code that will be followed going forward.
And maybe I look at Sean Anstey for resources that you currently have within the CCA being sufficient or not to do the work that you're currently required to do.
Chairman, if I could possibly refer to the Chief Executive.
Not a problem, thank you.
Chairman, one of the guiding principles, and Councillor McGuinness referred to the conversations that have been ongoing for a long time in terms of setting up the CCA, but one of the guiding principles that has long been established and agreed was that the CCA needed to be in and of us as councils, of upper-tier councils, but also of our district colleagues. And the approach that has been taken hitherto has been that complete team effort, absolutely recognising the challenges that we all have back in our respective councils, but also recognising those concurrent responsibilities and how actually this is the work for the greater good of Devon and Torbay as a whole. Our resources have been expanded and supported significantly with Sean's arrival. We do have governance support officers that were interviewed just last week and will be coming in to support. Clearly, the ongoing roles will develop over time, and the time that it takes will always be something that is front and centre of my mind. And the impact upon other responsibilities, and we will bring forward discussions as is needed. Councillor Long.
Thank you. Councillor McInnes.
I think it's very important, for, as Vice Chair of this authority, that the basic principles, as the Chief Executive has just said, is that we have our Chief Operating Officer, we have some additional people being used from the two authorities part-time, but this is an upper tier, a strategic authority that is actually here to bring a strategic voice to Devon and Torbay in terms of the issues in which we devolved from central government. We're not trying to set up another local authority in terms of the Torbay or Devon. And I think for members of the public who are here today or perhaps listening on live stream, I want to reassure them of that fact. Local government is having to be very adaptable, even more so at the moment in terms of local government review that's also going on across Devon. So I'd just like to reassure the councillor that brought the subject up. Now, thank you for bringing it up, because I think it's an important one to actually bring out into the open. But I think the more we have to work together as Torbay and Devon, as in authoritative councillors and officers, the more effective we will be, rather than setting up a separate organisation that is somehow in conflict with Devon and Torbay. So I think the principle of working together is absolutely crucial.
Thank you. Any more comments or questions or debate from anybody else? In which case, I'll move to the vote. And for clarification, this is that the majority of constituent council members of the CCA or their substitutes present and voting at the meeting to be in favour, including both lead members for the constituent councils in respect of paragraph 1.4, appointment of statutory officers. So therefore, a total of up to 6 people able to vote, and certainly myself and James having to be voting in favour in order for this to be approved. So with all of that explained, those who are able to vote know that they're able to vote. So all those in favour, please indicate.
5 in favour, Chair.
Thank you. Those against? Thank you.
1 against, that's carried, Chair.
Thank you. So the governance arrangements are put in place by a vote of 5 to 1. Thank you. We move on to item 3, which is the staffing and operating budget 25-26. And we move across to Matt Thorpe, who is our Chief Financial Officer. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. So this paper may also help Councillor Long see some of the additional staff capacity that's coming into the authority as well. It also builds upon what Sean was saying around the assurance framework and MHCLG signing off that assurance framework. That leads to the release of capacity funding. Capacity funding is 1 million split over the coming 2 years and essentially pays for that structure that we are proposing today. So the paper itself seeks approval of our budget for 25-26 and indicative budget for 26-27 based upon that release of capacity funding. I guess it also is worth noting, because we did sort of cover it at the shadow board, that it also goes into a little bit of detail around some of the programmes which we're expecting to be released or transferred over the coming years. But obviously, as per today's agenda, we'll get more detailed papers come forward as there's kind of key decision points or key information sharing around those. But this just tries to capture that kind of programme operation expected activity as well. I guess the only other thing really worth saying around this is there's a lot of work that's gone into kind of scoping the support needs of the authority. The staff listed there are the corporate support team, where we get work associated with various programme deliveries. We will be exploring what those flexibilities within that funding allows us to bring in additional support as and when and recharge to the programme as appropriate to do so. So I guess I'll just leave it there for the time being, if there's any questions.
Thank you very much indeed. So this is something that I'm more than happy to propose from the chair. You'll see that in the figures, certainly 25-26, looking to operate this new authority entity with a forecasted full-time equivalence of 6.3. So it's certainly not any huge new beast on the horizon that's looking to be created. As more work comes through, and as it has been already suggested, we will need to work, hopefully, with the other districts, as we have done in the first round. Don't forget that we've already had £16 million that we've been able to come through us to delegate across the whole of Devon, and some of that money's, well, a lot of it has already been spent, all of it has been committed, and that is being worked through with other officers in other authorities, delivering what it is, using this board as the strategic opportunity to bring that cash into Devon. So just before we move into questions and debate, I will invite Councillor McGuinness to second it, and then that will allow the proposal to be on the table.
Very happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. So we will move into questions and debate. Councillor Bialik.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the page with Appendix 1, the budget, and I can see all the figures there. It's just I'm not used to seeing pluses on most budget papers that I deal with at this moment. I see there's £160,000 worth of interest from the 16 million. Now, I understand that comes in. I just wonder what is going to happen to that, because should that be rolled back up into the 16 million on projects that we should use, or is it going to be used for the running of the authority? I'm just curious about that, because £160,000 may not seem a lot to some, but you can do an awful lot with £160,000 in the communities. I'm just curious on how that would be treated. I know it's going to be accounted in this way. Just curious how it would be seen. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
So you're quite right. It is the result of the capital funding that the authority received. Obviously, that is capital funds. That has certain criteria that it's got to be spent on asset creation. The interest that we earn on any of those capital funds is treated as revenue. So the proposal will be that is carried forward to support the operating costs of the CCA going forward. Similarly, other interest earning opportunities will come up in future years. It depends upon the timing of the funding that the CCA will receive. So some of the funding I would expect we'll receive in advance of paying it out. Other pots of funding we will receive after claiming it once the spend has been deferred. We would help or hope to use this to support that kind of cash flow management as well over that period.
Thank you. Councillor Gilbert.
Yeah, thank you, David. Matt, just at the bottom of page 7, the LEP. Nothing there. It's a bit of a dead on that one. Could you bring us as an ex-member of the LEP? Where's the money? Thank you.
You're quite right. There is Not yet confirmed the final amount that we are expecting to receive from it. I think there are still discussions around the interest element of that as well, that will transfer over to the combined authority and the successor kind of arrangements around that. I know Kerry, myself, Devon County Council's Director of Finance have all been in contact with colleagues at Somerset to try and seek that resolution. And again, just last week I was kind of trying to badger the Deputy Director there in person around that, but we have not yet got confirmation of when that will be transferred to us, unfortunately. But we will provide for estimates at year end around that as well, just to...
Legacy goes on and on, doesn't it? Okay, well, we'll leave it at that, but let's hope that can be resolved fairly soon. Thank you.
Thank you. And your comments are absolutely noted on that and taken on board. Any more? Thank you.
If I can ask at the bottom of page 6, what's the employer's NI credit, 140k?
Yep. Hopefully everybody's aware that recently there's been an increase in national insurance contributions issued by government. As part of that policy change, there was also confirmation that local government and some public sector bodies will receive support from central government around the direct cost impact of that. As a weird result of us being a brand new organisation and the kind of Treasury assessment of this being based upon average CCA type activity, they've confirmed to us that we'll get support of around of the 140,000 next year to support our costs. But as you can see from our staffing arrangement, our costs associated with that are not likely to come into that region, but it's part of the average application of that policy, really.
Will that number then get scaled down to reflect whatever the reality is?
We're not expecting it to, no. So that's the number that has been confirmed to us for the coming financial year. That was a nice email to receive when Sean and I got that.
So this is, I guess, government accounting, as opposed to how you and I would be able to write something in our book. You could always
hand it back if you wanted to.
There is, of course, always that option.
Spoke of the common good earlier on.
Okay, is there any further constructive debate? Okay, in which case, my apologies, Councillor Long.
Just a slightly delicate one. On the core team and statutory officers in Appendix 1, there are items for the senior leadership team, and it slightly links to my question earlier. Will there be a subsequent reduction in the Torbay budgets of those amounts at all?
Mr. Chairman, if I could assist. So those aren't payments that are made to the individuals, it'll be payments made to the organisations. So take myself, that will be a payment that's made to Torbay to recognise the time that is taken on behalf.
Okay, I think we're probably at the point of moving to the vote. And just to let you know on this one, the majority of constituent council members or their substitutes present and voting at the meeting to be in favour. And again, this one requires both lead members of the constituent councils. So again, those 6 votes. So all those in favour, please indicate.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. That one is unanimous. We shall move on. Move on to item 4, which is...
Can I just be very clear, I have declared a non-pecuniary interest in this item.
Thank you very much indeed. Item 4, Devon Assurance Partnership, the internal audit arrangements and the public sector audit appointments, external audit arrangements. And this one's sitting with Matt again. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. So as the sort of recommendations detail, really, this is essentially seeking two decisions from the board. One is around the appointment of our internal audit service. I'll just stress at this point that it's actually, we're seeking more than just an audit service in here. The Devon Assurance Partnership will support our risk management and be a point of contact for fraud awareness and training and kind of investigation around that aspect as well. So sort of just being really clear with that. The appendix in the paper details out a little bit around what the expected engagement looks like, how that will evolve over the shorter term, the next couple of years, and what we can expect from them in terms of support into the governance arrangements. They will also play a pretty critical role within supporting the audit committee as well around that support from reassurance perspective. And then the second part of the paper is really around our external auditors and appointments around that. So as the paper details, we've essentially got two options around this. We can go out and directly appoint a audit firm which meets the requirements of that, or we can go via the PSAA audit appointment route. The recommendation seeks to do that. It appears to be incredibly time consuming and doesn't really generate too much additional value, if any, going through that direct appointment ourselves, and it's essentially dealing with the same auditors that are eligible to kind of apply from that. So essentially it's seeking for appointment of both. With the PSAA external audit appointment, this is really a submission to them to seek their engagement on our behalf. We won't know what audit firm will be awarded that until after we've submitted that. Equally, and very helpfully, we won't know the cost of that annual audit, annual external audit support until that firm have kind of done a bit of work, a bit of due diligence with us to kind of understand us as an organisation. So, as per the previous budget item, that's an area which is still to be confirmed, but we've made some assumptions.
Thank you very much indeed. Before we propose and second this one, we will go to any questions. If there are any questions on this item. Thank you, Councillor Gilbert.
Just very quickly, recommendation 1.3, why doesn't it say from 2025-26, 2027-28? We've only got days to go, haven't we?
So one of the quirks of our timing of establishment being early February is that we have to do a year-end statement of accounts prep and get that reviewed and audited. We have been investigating whether or not we can add it into the subsequent year for that kind of, 8 or 9 week period. So we have to do a close down, basically. So they will be auditing our close down of our accounts for the bit that we're unsure on is the cost of that 9 week audit versus the cost of a full year audit.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? So from the chair, I will move the recommendations as printed, which are 1.1 to 1.4. And at this point, I will invite a seconder from the constituent council members, please. It's gone quiet. Thank you, Councillor Gilbert. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Perfect. So we've done the questions. No further debate, unless there is. Okay, in which case we move to the vote. That's the majority of constituent council members or their substitutes present and voting at the meeting to be in favour. So all those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Can I say, for all of the, I'm very conscious for all of the other people sat around the table at the moment. I guess this is because this is the inaugural meeting of setting everything up. You probably think, well, why am I sat here? No, we're getting to a part that you can be involved in now, sir. But yeah, I think certainly the next meeting will we will not be putting the constitution back in place. We will not be doing all of that kind of stuff. So thank you for bearing with us. We are up to item 5, and we are on the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. Kerry Denton, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this is a paper that some colleagues will have seen through the shadow board arrangements. There are 3 recommendations in front of you today. The first is to approve the proposal that's set out in the report for the use of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund for 25-26. As the accountable body, to approve Devon County Council submitting that forecast plan into MHCLG, and subsequent to that being agreed, entering into grant determination letters with the authorities for each of the allocations that are described in the report. We are hoping for a swift start of the fund, but that is dependent on government, and we have highlighted in the report there is a potential risk given the deadline, again, to spend the money swiftly. If there is any delay with the approvals at the start, both from MHCLG to ourselves and indeed us to grant recipients and them to us, that could put some risk into the process of delivering 74 projects. They have been developed collaboratively throughout the process, working across Team Devon partnership and obviously with colleagues at Torbay. It includes the recommendation approach is that we've stuck with the original allocations from previous rounds of UK SPF, and that has included the essential skills element, which took on from the Multiply programme, which was a requirement set down by MHCLG. There has been a slight change in some of the output definitions this time round from government, and the team that have collaborated and brought forward the approach that's in front of you today has recognised that in the proposition. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you. And I'm sure we might have some debate on this one for certain. So let's do the questions, let's do the debate, and we'll put on a proposal at the very end. So, Councillor Bialik.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to refer everybody to 3.8 of the report, and if you can just help me here a little bit with my maths. So we're told that the total is just over 4.4 million, but the revenue pot is 3.5. So if we can explain the difference between the total and the revenue part and what happens with that money. And then an observation here is, you know, and I get it, this is a new authority being set up, and I do understand that, but already some numbers have started coming through my mind at the moment. And I know that of some of the money, you had money set aside for you top slice it to run the authority, and I fully understand that, which is not at the expense of the 2 constituent authorities. But already we've gone through some of the agenda, and I've counted £160,000 of interest, £140,000 back for national insurance contributions, 300, and now a top slice of 100,000, that's £400,000. Okay, it all needs to be done. So I would like to see, if at all possible, something going to one of the future scrutiny committees to actually examine this fund, how it's managed, because, look, I get it, I understand it, and perhaps if somebody can explain to me, how has it cost £100,000 to divvy this money up? Okay? Now, I know you can take it, and you've taken it, and this happens with a lot of things that we do within a council, but there is £100,000 you've taken for admin costs to slice up the money before you hand it out to the districts and yourselves. And I would like to understand how it cost £100,000 to do these calculations and to issue the money. That's all because local authorities and yourselves were all strapped for cash. There's lots of services we want to deliver as a CCA and within our constituent bodies. And I just phone, as I said, I've just counted up £400,000 at the moment. Okay, and there's a lot of work could be done with that money. So I just need to be satisfied that the money is being spent. I understand how it works, but for this one, £100,000, I'm going to say it in this way, really? You need to explain to me how it cost £100,000 to divide this money up. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Kerry.
So as a point of clarification, the management is for the future work to be done, not the work that's happened, to arrive at the approach that's set out. So there is an onus on the accountable body to produce regular reports, monitoring reports. It has to obviously assure itself of the outputs being met, able to report that into government and to ensure that we address any questions that come through from government. That is the estimated cost of what that work will do. It will be time-sheeted, it will be evidenced, and it's obviously for the board's consideration to take forward the recommendation to think about that as a scrutiny item. I certainly would want to ensure that the outputs are met, and that would be a matter for scrutiny as well, not just the finances.
And of course, this board doesn't control scrutiny, and scrutiny can look at any items that it particularly wishes to do. And if this is the first item when it's set up, that may be the wish of the scrutiny board. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just going back to the related point that Matt made earlier around the 160,000, and I think what was said was that would be, although that's interest on a capital amount, that may come back to pay through revenue any additional costs that might come up through our processes. So the question is, if there are no additional costs, what do we do with that £160,000, I suppose? If Matt can't answer that now, maybe that's one to think about at scrutiny later.
So I guess just in terms of the 160 and the previous budget in relation to it, we do have a deficit in the final sort of years, 26, 27 at the moment. If it all being equal, that will offset that as an element to it. But I think we'll be a lot more detailed in terms of our cash management around that. I guess the other point, as Kerry was alluding to, in terms of the management kind of charge for projects like this, because it will be an issue that we'll see come again and again with various kind of funding streams as they come online. The intention is any overhead or recovery from that is related to delivery of that particular programme, not to the core team of the CCA. So we'll be kind of really closely monitoring and keeping that segregation in place, as it were. But just to kind of reiterate what the point that Kerry made around that is, these programmes of these scale do take a lot of officer time to kind of coordinate, to oversee, to contact the various recipients of the grants to make sure it's being delivered as per sort of the agreements that we put in place. I think in the paper itself it said the total is around, or the total available for that is about 4.5%, which I think is significantly more than that we've indicated within this as well. So there is a lot involved, I guess, but we can explore that further as and when if members want to.
Thank you very much. And I think it's that balance, isn't it, between 4% and 2.5%, I think, which is in there. Let's take the proposal, Councillor McGuinness.
Very happy to oppose, and in fact, Councillor Bialek said, when I've been sat here, we've been going through a process, and this is what it's actually all about, this one. This is starting to be what it's all about in terms of getting funding down to actually get investment into communities and projects across Torbay and Devon. And I know it's a relatively small start, but it's an important start, so I'm very happy to propose.
Thank you very much indeed. Any further questions? Those able to vote are the majority of members.
You're going to seconder.
Oh, sorry, yeah. We need a seconder. I was going to take... Thank you indeed, Councillor Gilbert. Thank you so much. Recommendations are 1.1 to 1.3. And those enabled to vote are the majority of members of the Combined County Authority present and voting at the meeting to be in favour, and non-constituent members can vote. There's a drum roll going now. Okay, so all those in favour, please indicate.
Did Fran put her hand up? Then we're unanimous.
That's unanimous. Your vote has been exercised, Councillor Bialik. Okay, we move on to item 6, and this is the Connect to Work programme update. Thank you, Ms Denton.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this report is seeking 3 approvals. It's a little out of sync, not the approvals, I should say. So the Connect to Work programme came out from government a short while before the CCA was established, and really what we're setting out in this report is the recommendation on how we govern and move this programme forward under a county council remit, and then as it can transition into the CCA over time. So the approvals in front of you are to note the County Council has been put forward as the nominated body. That came through from Department of Work and Pensions. To agree that in the interim period, while we remain as the accountable body for the programme, that we do a twin track on decision making, so we're not placing the CCA at any detriment for decisions that are taken through the County Council's work processes rather than through the CCA's. And then the third recommendation is, again, to note the work that has been done to reach this stage, but also the cost of now moving it forward into the next stage. This represents an exciting opportunity for the area. It is the first time in my working life that we have seen a national work and health programme devolve to the local area. It's been a long time coming, one might say. It's still quite prescriptive in how it needs to operate. DWP have set that out, and you've got that in the paper. So there's two varieties of working: supported employment and independent support for employers. It's all about encouraging people back into the workplace. It will sit within the overarching policy from government in their Get Britain working plan. And we'll talk about that at future meetings, I'm sure, because the CCA will be responsible for developing a local Get Britain working plan. It has been shared with the Skills and Employment Advisory Group last week, and I don't know if Lawrence wants to make any comments about that, but the approach that you've got here was endorsed by the Skills and Employment Advisory Panel. One thing to also perhaps draw attention to is that the way that Department of Work and Pensions will engage with the County Council is that all of the payment will be in arrears. So it's at least a quarter in arrears, which does create a cash flow problem should the CCA have wanted to step in at this particular stage, but something to bear in mind as we move forward. It also includes Plymouth. And what we've set out in the report is that we would establish a steering group under the Skills and Employment Advisory Group, which obviously is provided for in the terms of reference, and invite Plymouth to be part of that steering group to oversee the project as it moves forward. There's quite a lot more detail in the report about sort of outputs and spend, but I'll stop there and take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. And before we take those questions, I will move the recommendation written on page 1. There are 3 of them, 1.1 to 1.3, and I will invite a board member to second this. Thank you.
Chairman, I'm very happy to second.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Davis. In which case, let's move into any questions and debate. Thank you. We've got hands showing up everywhere. So I go, Donna, Ms Mason.
Thank you, Chair. I just wonder if we could hear more about the 1,900 placements and the impact that that's going to have, and where those placements will be, because that sounds quite significant. And you know, and also ask, you know, how do we ensure that we're targeting the right people to have the greatest impact?
So the cohorts and the criteria are part set by DWP, but there is full scope for local partners, including Plymouth, to identify how we engage and do a lot of the activity on the ground. And part of the methodology that you'll see in the report is a blend of doing some in-house work, so in Devon County Council's case, working through Learn Devon and the outreach programmes we have, with Plymouth doing all of their project proposals in-house and the outreach that they have in the city. And in Torbay's case, we would be looking at a more of a commissioned approach. It will be the outreach that is fundamental to ensure that we do address and put the impacts of this potential funding into the right places within our employee base. We know that we have certain disadvantaged groups and sectors that they will absolutely be prioritised within that. Part of the approval is to take on board that initial post to get this up and running, and we will certainly come back and talk to the CCA board about how we are having impact at the local area. The targets are quite high as well, and so there is some risk in there unless we get that outreach and the communication correct. There's a number of organisations that we've already started to engage with: voluntary sector, social enterprise sector, charity sector, and we did touch on this at the Skills and Employment Advisory Group, and representatives such as Young Devon, who are part of that group, are very much on board to help us make sure that we're targeting this at the right individuals.
Thank you. Councillor Bialik.
Surprised maybe, but I welcome this. I think it's very important. I'm listening to what Kerry has said in the question from Donna. I think this is so appropriate, and it's a big job, and I think it's something that we should be looking at. And perhaps as we tour the various district councils, while we're still here, and while we tour the various district councils, we may be able to see some of the work that this has happened, and in particular what Kerry said about a report back, because it's so easy for us to agree a paper, there you go, and it's there without seeing the outcomes and the feedback, because we are interested to see this coming forward. So it's something I would very much support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Lawrence, Kerry mentioned that it had been to your board, was it last week? Do you want to give us a feedback from that? That would be helpful.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it was discussed at the Skills and Employment Advisory Group. The key thing, I think, just to draw from this is certainly there was support from the group. It's really important, but the range of partners and making sure that we've got that connectivity, and also where those people go once we've got them into work or that we're progressing them. So having an escalator. So it will be making sure that partners are engaging those that are the hardest to reach, those that are described in the paper. And then the next steps for those, that we've got an escalator through skills, and that we're working together to make sure that's happened. And of course, linking that into the skills strategy, underpinning the local growth plan, and then making sure that we're using ASF money to deliver some outputs over and above what we're getting through this programme. So I think it was a positive discussion. There's clearly a lot of work to do, and we talked about the programme board as well.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Long.
Very much. I was just wondering, after reading paragraph 3.7 up to this meeting, how long it might take for the accountable body status to transition from the county to this body.
That's a live debate. We need to have that conversation at the appropriate time. Don't know, Sean, if you want to add anything to that.
Just to say, Councillor Long, that there's a number of questions, not least Kerry referred to the cash flow environment for funding this programme, which the CCA wouldn't have the capacity to do at the moment. So there's a number of there's engagement with DWP that's required that will determine when. I don't think it is a when, not an if. The transitionary arrangements happen. We need to make sure that the CCA has the capacity and core skills available to be able to do that. And I'll happily report back to the board at a future point.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Gilbert.
I really welcome this. It's good news, and shame that I won't be around to hear the outputs of this, because I'm quite optimistic about this. I'm slightly surprised, Phil, you haven't picked up on 3.9, another 100,000 there for you. Or are you just sort of forgetting that one? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I think that's probably all of the questions and debates, in which case we shall move to the vote. And just as an aid memoir, this is members of the CCA plus the non-constituent members. So this is why you came. This is why you came, Phil. So all those in favour, please indicate. Thank you.
That's carried.
Unanimous. It's not.
It's carried.
It's very confusing as to who can vote and who can't vote. So, and first meeting, you're forgiven. And you'll be pleased to know that there's no more votes. Well, actually, no, I'm really pleased to know there's no more votes. Okay, so it's not the end of our business. We have 2 items. And so move on to item 7. So I just want to remind you that this report is for noting. However, there's an opportunity for Kerry to provide us with a presentation and a Q&A at the end of it. So there will be no need for a vote, but I think these updates on the adult skills and the capital programme are real. These are the meat of what we're actually doing. Even if it's a case of just getting up to speed with where we are, really important stuff, but we are going to open it at the end for a Q&A. So if you have got a burning question, you'll be able to get it answered in just a moment. No pressure. Thank you. Ms. Denton.
Thank you very much, Chair. So yes, as has been said, this is an update report. We were specifically asked to bring forward a perspective of where things stand at the moment for our skills agenda and our employment agenda at the last Shadow Board, and I hope that fulfills the brief. The report sets out some of the current position, which has positives in it and opportunities. It also shows a number of the challenges across our labour market that we will need to work on as a partnership to address. It is also showing the updates of where we are with the Adult Skills Fund. So this will be a sizable amount of investment brought down to the local area, kicking in academic year start 27, 28 or 26, 27. Yes, getting my chronology correct. And in order for the CCA to be ready to do that, it needs to meet a number of readiness tests, including having a skills strategy. That has been commissioned from Exeter University, and in the report it tells you the 2 stages that work will be conducted across, tying in very much to the local growth plan and the work that Metro Dynamics are doing. And obviously, as we move forward with the Get Britain working plan for the local area, those things all do need to harmonise. Exeter University will have part of their brief is to do consultation, so please look out for that. There will be engagement and activity, and each and every one of you in this room, and indeed through the Skills and Employment Advisory Group, which will have oversight on that. The report also updates on the skills boot camps. This isn't an activity that is currently held by the CCA's responsibility, but it is definitely in the devolution framework set out in the English White Paper, so expect that the next wave will be an invite to the CCA to put forward its proposition. So what we've shared with you is the County Council's activity on taking forward the Skills Bootcamp, and our Cabinet approved the procurement of £8 million worth of investment on the Skills Bootcamps last week, and that was shared again with the Skills and Employment Advisory Group. Skills Bootcamps is all about listening to employers, listening to the gaps in their workforce, the key skills that are missing, the constraints on their growth, working with employers to co-design 16 weeks worth of short skills-specific activity. and a number of our colleagues across the FE sector and training provider network help support the delivery of that. The Skills Bootcamp does also have an outcome requirement of an interview, and it does talk about people leading into jobs in the way that they've been upskilled or been able to reskill. And finally, in the report is the update on the Careers Hub. This is a LEP activity that transitions or is in the process of transitioning under to the CCA in terms of governance. County Council is the host for that currently. And we deliver it in Plymouth as well as in Devon and in Torbay. Somerset have decoupled from us in the Careers Hub and they have their own now. So the responsibility is just for the ceremonial area of Devon. The Careers Enterprise Company is the agency for Department of Education that oversees the requirements for the Careers Hub. And again, we can bring forward more detail on the performance and what that is there to do. There is an opportunity to re-engage with the Careers Enterprise Company to help focus and shape that careers advice and guidance to be more specific to the needs of our area. At the moment, it's pretty formulaic, and you might have heard of the Gatsby benchmarks, and that's still very much the guiding principles through which the Careers Hub have to operate. In my opinion, therefore, the impacts are less than what they might be. And that engagement with employers can be reinforced by bringing it into the local area. There is also some debate on the future funding of the Careers Hub as well, because it requires match, and that match traditionally has come through the local enterprise partnership. And obviously, as that no longer exists, there is a gap in its current funding model. And whilst the legacy funds haven't emerged at Somerset, that does place a question mark in the way that we engage with DFE to secure the level of funding that we require to take that forward. So hopefully the paper meets the brief that Rufus, you gave us at the last Shadow Board. Very happy to take questions and obviously to follow this up with more information as required, as it's a report for noting.
Thank you very much indeed. Donna Mason.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to draw everyone's attention to 3.22 and seek a clarification point. I always enjoy when a sentence starts with a positive move, and it goes on to talk about an additional 8 million. Clearly, this is funding that's been in place in this programme since 2020, and here we are in 2025. So I'd be interested in some benchmarking as to that additionality, and also to ask the point, have we received more than it was expected? Have we received more than other areas per population size? Just to give us a sense of this positivity and additionality, if you could clarify that, please.
I would need to go away and double check our allocations compared to others, and certainly look at it as per head of population or working age population. But we did secure the full amount that we asked for this time round in this wave, and not every area did do that. And that is built up on a foundation of our credibility and being able to deliver the outcomes set down by DFE. In terms of the impacts, we are looking at doing that sort of longitudinal assessment. So individuals that have benefited through the skills boot camps had an interview within a job environment. What have they gone on to do? So there is, for us, definitely a qualitative assessment of the impact of what that money has done to date. And obviously, we would apply the same performance measures to the new funding.
Thank you. Just going to ask our chairs of our advisory groups, really, from a skills first of all, before moving across to business, just for a view impact on this particular item.
Thank you. Yeah, we had, as you would expect, quite a lot of discussion at our first meeting last week about a lot of things. I think one thing that came through really strongly, I mean, certainly I would support what Gary says, the boot camp additional 8 million is really positive. There are some other positives in the next wave as well, including the level that money can be used to support in terms of qualification, which could engage more people and have more impact, I would hope, from a training provider perspective anyway. The other piece I'd like just to talk about the Careers Hub, because we had quite a lengthy discussion, and one of the key topics that I think came through for me was the continued importance of advice and guidance, the ability to be able to make sure that the future pipeline of employees are fully informed about the opportunities both for work and the nature of work and the jobs that are available, but also the routes to that, which are changing all the time. There's much more flexibility. So that was something that was really, as a group, we were very positive about. And I think the other thing that struck me from the presentation we had at the group and the discussion was from our employer colleagues around the table, and that was very much, I think the word fog was used about just how much information there is out there and how difficult it can be for our employers to navigate that. And I think we work very hard already, but there's a lot more that we need to do to make sure we get the maximum impact from these really important initiatives. So we've got some great plans, lots still to do, but very positive discussion, a lot of energy, I think, in the room about what we want to do, how we'll go about it, and how quickly we want to do that.
Thank you. And for me, this is really where the benefits of the way that we're set up with the advisory groups playing in as well gives us those opportunities. Alan, can we just go across to you? Sorry, can I ask you to use the microphone?
I think I just emphasised what Lawrence was saying about the employers. I think it's difficult for SMEs to understand how to recruit, train apprentices and integrate them because they don't have the skills to navigate the system and they're worried about the commitment involved in taking something on. So I think for me the key thing is to turn that into packages that small employers can run with and not be scared of the risk, to start taking some responsibility for training people. That would be my contribution for the Voice of Business.
Great, and that's where there's an opportunity for us really to actually work together, you know, through those advisory boards, pulling that those different views together to get the best. Do you want to come back? Sorry. Perfect.
Just to add to Alan's point, I think one of the suggestions that we had around the table was a single point of contact for employers and businesses, so that they're not having to think about who do I go to for all of these different things. So I think that's something that we'll probably want to bring back, I would suggest, at some point pretty soon.
Absolutely, thank you. James?
I'm showing my ignorance here and I should know the answer to this question, but I don't, so I'm going to be honest. Devon Torbay Carers Hubs, and it talks working with over 100 schools and colleges. Now, is that voluntary, or are all schools and colleges expected to work with them? Because I think, you know, if we're actually going to raise, you know, and get better engagement with business and schools in terms of employment, etc., it really needs to be everywhere, not just those that want to do it.
So it's currently focused on secondary schools. Although there is some pilot work that we're learning from in terms of the national rollout of looking at career options within a primary school setting. So that's not yet live and kicking across Devon, Plymouth and Torbay. It is voluntary for schools to participate, but with their Ofsted gradings, they absolutely have to show how they are delivering careers advice and guidance, engagement with the workplace. And to date, I think we have all schools participating, but I'll double check that for you, James.
Thank you. Phil?
Yes, thank you. In noting this, I welcome it, but when I say some of the information worries me, but what pleases me is that we're going to grapple it, we're going to try to deal with it, because if we are serious about growth and not Devon regressing into that quaint place that people come on holiday for a few weeks of a year, but to actually have indigenous growth of young people and all people, and particularly over 19. I don't know about, we understand the reference boot camp. Should we be using that? I don't know what you think about that. Could we have another thing, a boot camp? I know that Rufus is retiring, but Rufus, there's opportunities here to get new careers and everything else. It only takes 16 weeks. So there's opportunities in life all the time. But on number 3, I just feel these stats, and I like a lot of stats and figures, but I don't know whether or not these stats actually cloud some of the real problems because they're so generalised, they're sort of county-wide, and when you go to 3.3 and further down to 3.6, it actually identifies. And what actually concerns me is there is an 18% difference between the top performing and the lowest performing. That has got to be something that, like a metric that we're going to use to say that we've got to deal with that, to be quite honest. Businesses would want to come to this part of the world and relocate. We've got to be able to encourage those businesses to come, to offer good, skilled, paid jobs to local people and to young people or all people to retrain into those skills and what we need. I think it's so important. And that's why I would welcome and I would want to support this work because I think this is one of the main areas that the CCA can have an impact across the county in skills, adult skills and everything. So I'm fully behind it, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Lewis.
Yeah, I agree totally with Phil, especially in taking our little area of Torbay. If we are going to develop, which we are doing, and we've got £105 million from government, we can only deliver if people have the skills. So it's catch-22. And I think the college is doing a great job, South Devon College, of developing courses that are needed for the Bay going forward. And I talk about the Bay because that's what I know best. And I think there is a reluctance. In my day, we had the YTS, where companies could take on people, which was very simple to do. We did it a lot when I was in London. And I think we've got to make it simpler so that those people who are really busy with their day job can actually develop and bring people on in that way. So, again, I welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I think that was a really useful conversation and certainly much more like the style of conversation that I think we expect from the board now that we've got the fundamentals out of the way. So I'm going to move on then to the capital programme update. Again, there's no votes on this, but it is an update, and I'm sure there'll be lots of debate and lots of conversations after it's been presented. I'll ask Kerry Denton to present again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an update report of the 16 million capital that the CCA received and the 16 schemes that were selected. It takes you back to how we went through that process, how the assessments were undertaken, how the decisions were made, and it shares with you at the back the full list of the programmes that have been supported. The Green Innovation Fund is supporting 69 individual programmes through a grant programme. So when we talk about 16, there is quite a lot of activity within one of those initiatives, which is worth drawing out. And I think we have some boards somewhere today for you to have a look. Where are they, Kate? They're in the lunch area. So please do have a look and see some of the good work that is being undertaken. The outputs and the benefits from this programme will take a number of years to realise. So there's going to be quite a lot of monitoring to test whether we got it right and what difference the funding has made. Certainly the next sort of 12 to 18 months will be required to look at some of the more obvious outputs. But when we look at the impacts of some of maybe the training investments that Lawrence and the other colleges have benefited from, we're looking at a lot longer time horizon. It's fair to say that this has been a challenging project to deliver, given the timeline in which we were granted to deliver it within. Due to the general election and various delays and revisiting with MHCLG when the dust cleared, we've largely only had 6 months in which to deliver this £16 million worth of activity. Not something we would ordinarily have done or wish to have done, but it is what challenge has been landed with us. So there has been some significant dialogue with MHCLG. Spend is still the deadline of the 31st of March, but with Matt's support and Matt's support through his finance team at Devon County Council and on behalf of the CCA, we have taken quite a lot of management action and creativity in ensuring that we can spend the money by the due date, we can evidence the spend, the defrayal, and still allow some projects the flexibility to have a longer delivery window. And I'll stop there.
Thank you very much indeed. Donna Mason, please.
I'm delighted to see a project that's focused on care leavers. I'd just like to note the work of Team Devon in this area in the last few years. I suppose my question is, to what extent in this board are we actually going to consider our corporate parenting responsibilities in all the activities that we do? Because in our own councils and across the Team Devon partnership, there's been a huge commitment to our care leavers as corporate parents. So I would just ask that question might be considered at some point into the future in the programme of work. That's part of all the work that we do.
Rufus?
This is one that I've been involved in throughout and shown a real keen interest, as I do in most things, but a little bit more than normal. It went really well. There was huge interest, and officers spent a lot of time on this, and including me, on the detail. And I'm very pleased to be able to say that the results have proven to be excellent. And I've actually site visited with officers some of the schemes that went forward to check that they did actually progress. And as far as I'm concerned, the ones that I visited and showed an interest in definitely did. So it's a positive outcome. And they're not always quite so positive because it's a lot of money and there's only a certain amount of time you can put in on this. And the checks and balances are quite hard, but they can slip through the net. But in this particular case, I'm utterly convinced that nobody did and the money was well spent. Thank you.
Anything? Phil?
Yes, sorry, but I think it is important, the funding that's happened, and I can just mention Exeter, well, what's going on, reporting there about Exeter College and what they're doing on green skills, the amount of jobs that's being created, also with the retrofit programme in Exeter. And when you come to Devon's leading city, I would be only too happy to ensure that the team is shown around some of the developments that we're doing with the retrofit programme. But on a serious note as well, it's quite important. If you look through the majority of these priorities, the majority are overwhelmingly green infrastructure, retrofitting, thinking about future-proofing buildings and making sure that obviously that people's energy bills comes down, but also it's about the environment. And I know there may be a view that net zero may not be achieved by 2050 by some. We have to keep going on that agenda because I think there's a lot of people living in fuel poverty, which this helps them out of. A lot of homes need to be updated because of damp, mould and 1930s stock that we've got much of, all needs updating and bringing up. It's about 80, 90 years old, very important. So I'm pleased to see that most of the projects are on the green agenda going forward, where we need the skills. And then when you look at the adult skills and some of the young people's skills that we can bring forward, this is really where I think the upturn in growth can be in what Devon can bring forward on that green agenda skills to boost people's lives and to increase things down here. Thank you, Chair.
I can't disagree with you because, the thing is, it's you don't need to be ticking a green box to make somebody's house free from damp or free from mould or increasing better health conditions for them and then effectively, hopefully, taking them out of fuel poverty at the same time. There is so many additions around the whole of that agenda that really, whichever way you look at it, it is a no-brainer. So yeah, absolutely agreed, 100%. Anything else from anybody else?
I can just ask, do we actually get all the money out the door by the 31st of March? And if we don't, what happens?
We will make it so, Alan. And
Should I ask?
Matt can answer that second question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as Kerry alluded to, the team have been working really hard with the partners and the various programme leads to ensure that funding is allocated appropriately to appropriate projects within that. There will be some intervention from Devon to kind of substitute some spending into this year, into next, but that will be less than £1 million, I'm told at the moment, from it. But that won't detract from the project. That's just a profiling of the funding release, essentially, to allow us to make sure those projects deliver as expected to. But there, you know, as we alluded in the budget paper, there has been a benefit to the CCA of the timing of this landing quite late in the financial year in terms of deferment of spend for interest earning. But it's not what we'd want to see as that kind of relative peak of cash flow leaving the doors right at the end of the financial year. So hopefully the longer full year effect will allow us to kind of manage that differently moving forward as well.
The second question, the Teignmouth geothermal scheme that got withdrawn, what was wrong with that? Why was it withdrawn?
There's nothing wrong with it. Unfortunately, a feasibility study is considered revenue spend, not capital. Where you then don't proceed to create an asset, Matt, I'm really struggling with my capital accountancy knowledge here, that would be deemed as revenue and therefore it would be an ineligible spend. And Teambridge didn't feel comfortable with taking that potential risk that there would be a capital asset attributed to the feasibility study, and that's why it was withdrawn.
Thank you. Councillor Tyman.
Thank you, Chair. Not only am I a constituent substitute member on this committee, but I'm also a cabinet member for housing at Torbay, and therefore very involved in the intricacies of getting schemes across the line in the time frame needed. And I thank Devon, thank you all at Devon for the cooperation to our officers in making that happen. I can put your mind at rest that the scheme that's been causing us most problem actually got finalised and signed off yesterday. So we have now got the full commitment in for our element of the funding. But I think there's also, I wanted to say that I think it's important that we take the lessons from all of these schemes forward into the housing advisory group that is being set up and which a number of us around the table here are on. And we use that learning to bring forward ways in which we can get better value for schemes in the future from hopefully the next round of funding that we receive.
Thank you, Alan. Anything from anybody else? Thank you, James.
Well, I'm just saying the obvious, Chair, that you introduced it. I mean, this is fundamental to the CCA, and that's why we're here in Tavistock today, so we can go off and actually see one of the projects this afternoon that's happening in Tavistock. And I think right at the beginning, the cooperation of the Torbay, Devon and the districts was really very good. And when we went actually through the projects, and I know Leader of East Devon was part of the panel that we went through, it was a very good process, which was very sort of transparent, and we moved really quickly. It would be nice if we didn't have to move quite so quickly. But it's really good to hear that we're going to get everything over the line by the 31st of March. That's great news. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, everybody. That was the first part of our inaugural meeting. We are running a little bit ahead of time, which is not a problem, and so we will leave here for the site visit at 1:30. Leave here at 1:30 for the site visit. As for this part of the meeting and our first inaugural meeting, thank you very much for attending, and it is now closed.